Hey, what's up, guys? It is Thursday, March 13th, 2025. We're at the Bitcoin block height of 887,695. TikTok, next block. And as you can see down here, guys, the transaction fees for the next block, this is the mempool right here, and these are the blocks that already been mined. The fees are very, very low. So if you guys want to move some Bitcoin today, right now would be a good time. And real quick, I should be doing this more, but I'm gonna do it. Welcome to some of my new subscribers here. Thank you so much. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jerry from Jerry Loves Freedom. I've been stacking Bitcoin just over a year now. Used to be a precious metal stacker. I'm 50 years old, and I'm an older gentleman. You know what I mean? And I've been doing this finance game for a while. I got a finance degree, and I know a little bit about the fiat stuff. I wanted to be a personal financial advisor, but I never did that. I used to be in the military, but now I work part time doing DoorDash. I get a check every month, but outside of that, I dedicate my door dashing to Bitcoin. And here's a playlist right here. I got some videos right here. I do a Satoshi Saturday every Saturday about Satoshis. I used to do Bitcoin numbers and news, and then my door dashing for Sats videos, and that is a adventure that you may like. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining. And real quick, I want to give a couple of shout outs. This is my boy Otis Hare Jr. This is OJ. He makes videos quite often. Young guy, he's 30 years old. Very, very accomplished young man, and he's got some great, great videos on YouTube. So please go ahead and subscribe to him. I watch every single one of his videos that he puts out, and we need to, boost up our Bitcoin fellowship here, our YouTubers, and go ahead and please subscribe to him. He's a great, great channel, and Otis, you my boy, man. Thank you so much for making your incredible videos. Now, this right here is Dr. Satoshi. He makes some short, semi-shorts. He makes some great videos too. He actually, he's dressed up like a doctor. I think he actually is a doctor in real life. And he's not just talking about physical doctor stuff, which he does, but he's talking about how Bitcoin can heal you. You know what I mean? He's got some great, great videos. So again, go ahead and subscribe to Dr. Satoshi. Excellent, excellent videos. And last and certainly not least, my boy Corey from Got Sats. Now this guy makes a video every single day at around the same time. I don't want to ruin it for you, but let's just say he buys the same amount. He's very articulate. He tells you exactly what he paid for it, how much he got, and everything else. And he keeps his videos between 2.5 and 5 minutes. And he's got a great, great channel. And he gave me a shout out today. And he inspired me to do this today because I wanted to give I've been wanting to give Otis a shout out and got Satoshi's a shout out. I already did. I mean, Dr. Satoshi a shout out. But him doing that for me, he did it on his last episode, episode number 72, was really an honor and a privilege. And I just wanted to tell him on here on my video, Corey, I really, really appreciate you, man. I love you, brother. And go ahead, guys. I got all the links in the descriptions to make sure you guys subscribe to these channels and make sure we support our fellow Bitcoiners. All right, guys, today's Bitcoin price is 80,840. So we're down a few bucks, 200 and something bucks from the 24-hour chart, right? In 5 days. So yeah, so we're looking pretty good. We're still over 80,000. The lower the better, because as you guys know, the lower we go, the more Satoshis we can get at 1.237 or 1,237 Bitcoin or Satoshi, for $1. Now I'm trying my best here, guys. And I told you this the other day because I was going to make a video outside walking around, but it was just too windy. That I tried to do my best to not make every video a Satoshi Saturday, and unfortunately, I just can't help it. I talk about Satoshi, so that's why, as you can see from the title of this video, it's called Bitcoin: the best way to save and the only way to save. Now, some of you guys have heard me say that. The new people may have not. But I was looking at my metrics the other day, and a lot of my viewers don't watch my entire videos. And it could be for one or two reasons. Either I'm boring, or you already know what I'm going to say at the end, or you just don't want to get there or whatever, and that's fine. But I want to touch on this and tell you why I say what I say. So I'm going to go ahead, and I made a short the other day, and I want to react to it and show you why I say what I say about Bitcoin being the best way to save and the only way to save. That base layer of that digital money is going to be Satoshis. So since you know that, and some of you may be thinking you're early and maybe buying some other cryptocurrencies and stuff like that, that's okay. You got to go through that sometimes. You got to go through that. And if you still have stocks and bonds and gold and real estate and cash and all this other stuff, just know you're on your journey to being 100% in the savings of the best money in the world. And if you've been paying attention, I'm pretty sure you already know what that is. It's the best way to save. And for me, the only way to save. And that's Bitcoin. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace and love, guys. Yeah, I say that at the end of every video. I don't really script my videos, but I tend to say that at the end of every video, except for Satoshi Saturday. I have another ending. But why do I say that? I say that because, as you heard in the video, I was talking about, having cash, saving in cash, and real estate, and the different investments that we were taught to save in. It's not a good way to save long term. Okay, that's why they call it investments, and I'm going to show you why. Especially the U.S. dollar, even though it is the strongest one in the world, it's not a good one. For those of you that don't know, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada right now. And in 2007, I came here to visit. I have a great aunt that lives here. And she let me stay at her house for about 30 days. I was here for a real estate conference. And they were selling this book right here, Why We Want You to Be Rich by Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki. And I purchased that book. And that whole 30 days, I read it. And let me tell you, that book, besides Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I read that before that, this book absolutely changed my life. Why We Want You to Be Rich. And this is part of the reason why I still love Donald Trump to this day. I've read plenty of Donald Trump's books, and I've also bought some of his courses. This is way before he even thought about becoming a president. Well, not thought about it, but became a president. I ran for president. I read The Art of the Deal. I think it was How to Think Big or something like that. I've read a couple of them, his real estate books too. But in this particular book, they talk about why we want you to be rich. And what they say is they talk about how the rich keep getting richer and the poor keeps getting poorer. And then the middle class has a choice to either get up there with the rich or go down and be more poor. And as you guys know already, we talked about this and I'll talk about it later. We're in a period of stagflation and some inflation. Even though inflation has gone down, it's not the actual inflation that's gone down. It's the rate of inflation that goes down. And this is why I tell you guys, you got to pay attention to politics. Because, again, when you hear these numbers and stuff like that, we got to go through them and understand what they do. So what this book basically talks about is why we want you to be rich. So don't think like a poor person. Think like a more entitled or a rich person and invest in things that'll make you rich, assets and stuff like that. And back then, this is before Bitcoin came out, the best one to do was what? Real estate, some stocks, some bonds and stuff like that. And they talk about this. But the reason why these things are good is because the amount of dollars that are coming into the system, which I'll show you here in a minute, and what these assets do, they're not going up in value. They're just keeping up with the money supply. And that's what it does. And he actually talked about that in this book. So it was a great book. I suggest you highly, highly pick it up. Because, again, I always talk about Bitcoiners being mini economists. All right, we're going to get ready to look at the M1 money supply. And before we look at that, I want to give you the definition of what it means. It says M1 money supply refers to the total amount of money available in an economy at a particular time. Now, again, it's not money, quote unquote. The only money there is now, there's only two monies now, is gold and Bitcoin and Satoshis. Primarily including physical currency, demand deposits, and other liquid assets. Right? So basically the liquid, quote unquote, money, like cash. Cash is the most liquid thing in the world. You can have a car, you can have some kind of stock or real estate or some kind of item that you can get cash for, and you can turn that into cash. Even gold and silver is great, but it's not as liquid as cash, unless, of course, you find somebody that can just directly, you can give that to them directly, and then they can give you the product or service that you want. The Federal Reserve Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. tracks and reports M1 data weekly and monthly. As of January 2025, the seasonally adjusted M1 money supply was reported as $19.221 billion. So in other words, it's $19.221 trillion as of January 2025. Because again, that's 19,000. Every 1,000 billion is 1 trillion. And there's 19,000 trillion. So Let's take a look at this chart real quick. It's from the Fred website right here, FRED. And all you got to do is type it in as M1 money supply. And I've talked about this chart before, but I want to get into it. So now remember, it says it right here, it's measured in units of billion. So there's 18,455 billion. Now remember, in January it was 19 something, they said, but it's gone down since then, I guess. Now this is the all-time chart. It goes back to 1959. Now as you can see, there was 139.4 billion dollars in circulation total, right? And as the years go by, just a little bit goes up and down, you know. And these gray lines right here is when the recession is, right? And I'll show you more of that in a second. These are all the recessions. But as the money supply slowly but surely, as the money supply goes up, that means your purchasing power goes down. Now, everything changed, obviously, on August 15th, 1971. That's when the money supply really started going up because Richard Nixon took us off the gold standards. As you can see, it slowly but surely started going up even more. And again, we're not even at 1,000 billion yet, which means we're not even at a trillion yet in the 80s and even in the 90s. But then once we got right here in November of 1992, we got to our first $1 trillion in circulation. But as you go down this chart, and again, we're passing recessions. These gray areas are recessions. As you go up, the money supply is going up. And then as you can see, it just went up like a hockey stick right here. Now, why is that? Why in February 2020, we only had 4 trillion, in the system? Because remember, back here in 2008 and 9, that was when the housing crash came and the Great Recession came. We printed a lot of money, relatively speaking, of what we had before. It started really going up. But right here, when we leveled off at about 4 trillion, why did it peak at almost 21 trillion? Well, we printed a lot of money. And as you can see, the dates, 2020, these months for 4, 5, 6 months, most of it happened during Donald Trump's reign when he was president. Now, I'm not saying it was his fault, but obviously you know what happened here. We had COVID, and there was a slight little recession here. It wasn't really a recession, but everything receded because everybody was home. But we peaked out, but then it went down. But this is the problem, guys. This is why I say Bitcoin is the best way to save, because you can't save in these dollars. Now, when you talk about inflation going quote unquote down, it's not going down. It's the rate of inflation going down. So now that you know that, let's take a look at the velocity of the M2 money supply. Now, M2 is different than M1. So let's read this here. Velocity of M2 money supply, also known as the velocity of M2 money stock, is a measure of how frequently each unit of M2 money supply is used to purchase good and service within a given period. It is calculated by dividing the GDP, the gross domestic product, for a given period by the average money supply for that period. This ratio reflects the number of times each dollar is used to generate the economy's output. So basically what it's saying, and you guys can screenshot that and read it, basically what it's saying is the velocity, how much of the money is circulating within the country, right? And that's what it is for. And as you can see here, everything was steady. Again, back to 1959, that's how much was moving around, right? And again, this is not about trillions and stuff like that. This is an equation. But as this number goes down, as you can see, we're basically headed into a recession. And right now, the velocity of money is 1.386. Right. And again, I can get into Trump's plan and stuff like that, or why the stocks went down the other day and all this other stuff, but I'll say that for another video. So if you guys actually look at the money supply, like I showed you before, at $18 trillion or whatever it was, and then you look at the velocity of it, as you can see, it's starting to creep back up. But I think Trump's plan, like I'll get into in another video, is probably going to go down because he wants to not move around as much money. So as you can see right here, it went the lowest in Q2 2020 because everybody was home and stuff. Then it slowly but surely started going up and up and up. And again, I'll talk about Trump's plan later on. But this is the velocity of money inside the United States of America. Now this right here, this is interesting. This is shadow government statistics. Talks about the CPI or the CPI numbers. And as you can see, and let me zoom in on this a little bit. So the red line right here is the numbers that they give us with the CPI. And the reason why I say CPI, because if you look at the blue numbers, these are how they measured it in the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that. Actually, the 1980 base when Paul Volcker raised the interest rates, which I'll show you on the next chart. And they actually looked at the real basket of goods that everybody was looking at. But as you can see here, they said inflation went up to about 9% right here. But in actuality, it actually went up to about 18%, 17, 18%. So they lied about that. You know what I mean? Again, because if you look back at that chart of the money supply, again, that's where it matches up right there. It went up. Again, the higher the money supply is and the more cash there is in the system, the less the dollars are worth because you're chasing the same amount of goods with far more of the US dollars. So when you look at these charts and the actual inflation charts, this is why I call it the CP lie, because it's not true. You know what I mean? And even though inflation is going down, the rate of inflation, it's really going down from here. These numbers, not these numbers, guys. We're not 2 point whatever percent they're talking about. It's much, much higher in comparison to February of 2020. So I believe right now we're in a state of called stagflation. Let me read this to you. Stagflation is an economic cycle characterized by slow growth and a high unemployment rate. Now, again, this is Biden's economy right now. Even though Trump is doing a great job, it's going to take a long time for him to get this going. And the employment numbers are up, yes. But remember, Joe Biden's economy, and I don't want to get political here with you guys, Joe Biden's economy was fake. It was built on nothing, right? Because a lot of these jobs that they were talking about were government jobs. They weren't real private sector jobs. So, and inflation was much, much higher than they say. So when inflation is high and job growth is low, that's when you have stagflation. Economic policymakers find this combination particularly difficult to handle, as attempting to correct one of the factors can exacerbate another. Once thought by economists to be impossible, stagflation has occurred repeatedly in the developed world since the 1970s oil crisis. And again, I truly believe right now we're in stagflation. Nobody could tell me any different, guys. So let me introduce you to the great Paul Volcker, right? Because how are we going to lower inflation? How are we going to do it? You have to raise the interest rates, right? And I'm not trying to get into a economic class here. So let me read his bio real quick. Paul Volcker's tenure as Federal Reserve Chair from 1979 to 1987 saw significant fluctuations in interest rates as part of his efforts to combat high inflation. During his term, the federal funds effective rate, which is the interest rate at which depository institutions lend reserve balances to other depository institutions overnight, reached a peak of 17.6% in early 1980. Again, we reached that in 2022, but again, they lied about the numbers. Remember, they were all telling us that inflation was transitory and this, that, and the third, and we really were in a recession, but remember, they changed the definition because a recession actually is 2 negative GDP growths, 2 quarters in a row. And when we got to the second one in the fourth quarter of 2022, they changed the definition. Reached a peak of 17.6% in early 1980 and then rose to an even higher peak of 19.1% in June 1981. These rates were significantly higher than current interest rates, reflecting the severity of the economic measures taken during the period known as the Volcker shock to curb inflation. So in other words, what he did, and I'm going to show you this chart, what he did was, in these years right here, 1980, he raised the interest rates in 1980 to 15.85 to 18.9, and in 1981 to 19%. The reason why you got to raise them this high is because you have to make it very, very expensive to borrow money and have less money into the system, like that velocity I showed you, so the velocity can go down. So the only way to really stop inflation long term is to raise the interest rate so high, and also you got to stop printing money. You got to get some of that money out of the economy. And that's what he did, and he had to do that. But as you can see here, in 2009, look how low the interest rates were. They're basically almost zero. Then we tried to raise them a little bit, and then we went to a recession. Now look at it. Every time we raise the interest rates too high, we go into a recession. That little gray box, these little gray lines. We raise it, recession. Here. We raise it, recession. Raise it, recession. Raise it, recession. Every single time we raise it, go into a recession. And we did that here too. We did that in 2022, but they didn't put it as a recession because, again, they changed the definition. So right now, interest rates are 4.64 according to this chart. And I think what Trump is trying to do is I think he's trying to almost crash this with the stock market on purpose. That way he has to get the interest rates down to keep the economy going, because they cannot in today's world, you cannot raise these interest rates this high, because if you do it, you're gonna crash the economy. Again, we've kicked the can down the roads for so long, and Trump's saying, you know what, we can't kick it anymore. We got to go through some pain, and that's what we have to do, guys. But this is why we save in Bitcoin, because we don't have to worry about all this stuff. When all these fluctuation of interest rates and stuff like that, yeah, that affects us personally. But when it comes to Bitcoin, it doesn't do anything at all, except bring the price down for a short period of time, and then we can buy more cheaper sats. Here's the total assets from the Fred thing, and here's the definition. You can read that and pause it and read it. And here's a chart of it. The total assets less elimination from consolidation, Wednesday level marks. So what it is this is all the assets they have on the balance sheets, the government. And right now we're at 6.7 billion, which is six and almost a little over 6.5 trillion of assets on the books as of February 2025. And the reason why they take the circulating supply out of the economy. This is another way they do it to make sure everything goes down. And that helps with a combination of not printing, also raising interest rates and taking assets on the balance sheet. That's going to do it, but they can't keep doing it or it's going to crash the economy. And also, as a final note, this is the U.S. 10-year right now. What Trump is trying to do, even though we know Bitcoin is the best way to save, we know that. Right now, this is the safest thing that the mainstream knows about. This is the 10-year. This is the long term. And the more people come into this, the lower this is going to go. So it's going to force the Fed, in my personal opinion, to lower the interest rates. And I think that's what Trump's plan is. Because remember, inflation is only good for two people, right? It's good for the government because they're the cotillion and also they make money and get their stuff passed and bills. And these guys are all rich. So inflation doesn't really help them. And again, they get paid off of it. And the cotillionaires and the politicians. And two, who likes inflation is the stock market. They love it. People that own the companies, they love inflation because all the money that's going up. And as you can see, if you look at the S&P, the NASDAQ, and all this other stuff, the more the money supply goes up, the more it flows up to the rich. And that's why Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki was talking about, this is why we want you to get rich, because the more money you print, the more money goes up to the rich people, right? And that's who benefits, the government, Wall Street, but guess who suffers the most? Main Street. And this is why I tell you, Bitcoin's the best. All right, guys, there you have it. I hope that helped you. I'm trying to not make this video too long, but it is already. I hope you guys are stacking as many Satoshis as you can. And again, we see this national debt right here at over 36 trillion. And I love what Doge is doing and everything else. But like I played in that video, people are buying stocks and bonds and real estate and all this other stuff. And I don't have to go into a lesson with you about the hardest money in the world because you guys already know what it is. And the reason why I say what I say, but why it's the only thing to save in and the best way to save in, because what are you going to do? Are you going to save in the third best, the fourth best? Do you need diversification? No, you save in the best and the number one money in the world, because there's 4 stages of money, guys. It starts as a collectible, then it goes to a store of value, then it goes to a medium of exchange, and then the world reserve currency. Right now, Bitcoin is at stage 2 and a little bit at stage 3. We're a store of value right now, and we're the best store of value by far. And some people exchange it here and there, medium exchange, a little tiny bit, but we're moving over close to there. But while we're saving and while we're going through these hard times of high interest rates, high inflation, low jobs, a crazy debt, there's only one way, guys, to defeat this stuff long term. And if you've been paying attention, I'm pretty sure you guys already know what it is. It's the best way to save. And for me, the only way to save. And that's Bitcoin. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace and love, guys.